Vigorous perennial weeds in the garden can be very frustrating. Ask me how I know. Annual weeds are easy to take out. All you need is some cardboard and some wood chips. But the problem with that is there are certain weeds that don't care about cardboard and wood chips, such as dandelions. In order to defeat the weeds, we have to understand the weeds. And I spend a lot of time coming out here trying to learn how these weeds grow, the conditions they like. And one of the things I've learned is that some of the conventional methods to control weeds, such as pulling weeds, actually makes them worse and stronger. For annual weeds, absolutely, cardboard, wood chips will put an end to all annual weeds. But I found a solution to the pesky perennial weeds, and that is just slices of wood. So I'm going to start out talking about the slices of wood and how these destroy the weeds and what not to do while trying to smother weeds with the slice of wood. And at the tail end of this video, we're going to go through, I'm going to point out some of the common weeds you probably find in your garden and tell you why it's probably not a good idea to pull them out, chop them, and we'll just talk about how they grow and how to control them. I continuously come through here. I've been adding more and more wood chips. We're about 12 inches thick right now. You can never have too many wood chips. And here's all the free timber I get that also comes from Chip Drop. So what I do is I'll go through here and some of this elm that I don't want to split because it's hard to split, I'll chop it up into slices. And then as these vigorous weeds pop through the wood chips, which they will, look at all these dandelions here. They don't care that the wood chips are thick and there's cardboard. They're still going to make their way up. I got these here, and what I do is I just cover them up. The process is very simple. I want to take a slice of wood that is bigger than the dandelion. And what we're going to do is we're not going to pull this dandelion. If you pull this dandelion, it's going to get more vigorous and start growing out to the side. What we're going to do is we're going to just cover it up nice and firm. We don't want any spaces here where these leaves can come out because they will find their way out if they can. To prove that point, here's a slice of wood that had a little gap in it. And look what we have here. The dandelion found its way through the tiniest crack we can get in here. So what I've learned is dandelion is incredibly easy to kill. And before people get angry, my whole entire lawn is dandelions. It just got mowed, but they'll be coming back up. So I do save tons of dandelions for the pollinators. Now when you cover those dandelions with that heavy slab, dandelions are gone in 3 weeks. Completely erased. Under here was a very vigorous dandelion that I covered up. Did not pull it. It is smothered. All these stems are white here. This plant is on its way out. It's almost there. You can see all the pill bugs in there. There's a nice wolf spider in there. And slugs, our garden enemy, are actually helping us at this point. These slugs are eating all this rotting vegetation. So it turns out that dandelion needs pretty consistent light to grow and probably some airflow. So you get no light going in there, no airflow going in there. You're making a perfect environment for nature's decomposers to go in there and finish off the plant. So in 3 weeks, you come in here, you lift it up. There is absolutely no sign that a dandelion ever existed in here. It is gone. Under here, same thing. We got some sprouts of something coming up, but they won't be there for long. The dandelion is gone. Wolf spider is just hanging out. Good job, buddy. And then look at here. I accidentally left a little bit of the dandelion sticking out, and that is enough for the dandelion to hang on. So we're just going to move this a little bit just to block that leaf out, and that dandelion will be gone in a couple weeks. You can see I got quite a few dandelions popping up since I did put these down on the first ones popping up. So once these are dead, we'll be moving these around and probably cutting some more to finish off a lot of these weeds and add more wood chips on top. Dandelions are one thing, but stuff like this curly dock here is a beast. It takes a little more effort. But the curly dock too can be defeated. You look under here. That used to be a curly dock full of leaves, and something is in here chowing down on it, which is good. Got a little curly dock popping up there that's not completely underneath this slab, so we're going to move it over and take that one out too. It's to be seen how long it's going to take to defeat the docks, but got nothing but time here in the garden. It's not like we're planting anything here yet. We're going to put some melons and pumpkins to cover everything up. But in the meantime, these slabs can stay. They're not hurting anything. And just the fact that we're watching that plant being eaten by the decomposers is telling me that that plant is running out of life and nature is cleaning up the remnants. Now let's talk about an absolute demon weed that you're going to find in your garden most likely, and that is Canada thistle. Canada thistle gets slowed down quite a bit by the cardboard and wood chips, but once they start poking through and get that light and can start getting that energy, all hell breaks loose. I'm working on controlling the thistle as well with the slabs here. This one was just covered up yesterday. It's already starting to fade a little bit. This is going to take a little bit longer, and I'm going to explain why. It's very important to understand how the Canada thistle operates as we move away from the slabs here. That was just a quick tip I wanted to show you in this video here. These wood slabs work really well. You can use stuff like plywood, any kind of covering that you could put on the surface, but I think one of the important things is it's something heavy. You don't want to give any airspace in there. It's the lack of airflow I think really helps to take these plants out. So dandelions, the curly docks, potentially the thistles, just covering them up and leaving them there, set it and forget it. It seemed to work out pretty well from the initial trials I've done in here. With all these weeds I've showed you here, the important thing is do not pull the plants out. Don't try to dig up the root system. Leave all that foliage on there and cover them up. Now back to this nasty guy right here, the Canada thistle. You're going to want to wear gloves that work on it because if you grab it, it hurts really bad because it's full of spines. But don't go grabbing it, because doing so and going to try to control this plant by grabbing it, possibly pulling it out, is actually going to make your problem a lot worse. So one of the ways to control a thistle, and I've done a video on this, is digging them up and trying to get as much of the root as possible. But there's a big problem with that, because thistle itself is not just one plant with a large taproot growing around each other. These plants here are actually just stems of a gigantic plant that lives underground and spreads all over the place. So these thistles growing over here and throughout here are probably on the same plant as this, all with one giant rhizome network. So when you pull up that nice long taproot and you thought you got all the roots of that thistle, you're actually just breaking off one branch of that giant underground network. And what happens if you break the branch off a tree or other plants? It'll grow several more and bush out to replace it. That's what's going to happen with these thistles if you try digging them up. Now, if you continue and just keep digging up every little resprout that comes up, eventually you're going to exhaust the plant. But once you stop, they will be back, and once they get light, they're building up that root system again. So even though I've done it in the past and it works, it's a ton of work to get done, and I would not suggest trying it. So when I go through here, dig down as deep as I can, loosen up that soil, and I pull this guy up. Look at that. Looks like we got a big root there. Oh, little break. That's actually where it meets the giant root system. And what's going to happen now is, because I broke this off, we're probably going to have 10 more pop up around here, right off that root system. So I'm doing a little experiment here. I'll let you guys know later in the season how it works out, where I'm coming through and I am chopping the thistles, not completely to the ground. I'm chopping them above the bottom leaves here. And what they're doing is they're putting out more growth off this plant here. Hopefully this does not tell this plant to start sending shoots up. Hopefully it just says, hey, I'm broken, I got nodes here, I can keep growing. I'm going to let this bush out more and just keep cutting it, and hopefully when it tries to go to flower, when it uses the most energy, we can give it a cut again, and that will be the end of the plant. That is to be seen. We'll see how that works out. I've read that some people have done that and it's worked out pretty well, but we'll see what happens. So for thistles, I'd recommend something like the slabs I'm using in there to cover up the thistle. Hopefully you caught it early enough and you don't have a lot of them. Try not to disturb the leaves of the plant too much. Try not to break it too much. We don't want to send a distress signal to the root system. And definitely don't let it go to seed, because thistle makes thousands of seeds and your problem will get way worse. And why shouldn't you dig up the curly docks that we saw earlier that we're trying to smother out in here in the strawberry patch? Yes, I tried digging up this curly dock several times, and all it did was just make this plant a whole lot wider, and now it's taken up almost this whole space. And that's because, just like plants like comfrey that grow in these big, vigorous, deep root systems, when you crack off a piece of that root, you're just creating more plants. So as I keep digging this, I'm just cutting off roots that are going to resprout next to it, making this even wider. And when you get to this point and it's this big, there's really not much you can do besides using a heavy tarp, some wood slabs, something to completely smother this thing out and just let it sit there, probably for over a year. And this is also a good time to point out that in my garden, we don't use any synthetic items, even the organic stuff, like some people will use vinegar to control weeds. I just don't want to do that, so I'm not gonna. The last weed we're gonna discuss is probably my #1 enemy in the garden. And if I was to redo building this garden, I would have done something different to hopefully try to prevent this. And here's a small example right here. This is quack grass. And over here by this josta berry, you can see that the quack grass has found a nice opening to grow in, just by me making a little opening in the ground here through the wood chips and cardboard to plant. The quack grass completely surrounds my garden from all sides and is constantly trying to make its way in here and grow. And in many instances, it has succeeded. And it is creeping its way in here. There's a battle going on in here between the chocolate mint and the quack grass. Later in the season, we'll see how that plays out. Usually the mint gets pretty tall and they kind of grow together. There's really no shading this stuff out. Even strawberries are not shading this out. There's some popping up through here, and once it's in here with the strawberries, the only way to get rid of it is digging it out, but that's going to harm some of the strawberries, so we're not going to do that. And the terrible thing is, digging it out actually makes it worse. So let's take a look and see why it is worse. Let's come over here to some of this quack grass that's growing right here, and let's try digging some of it out. So if I go ahead, go off to the side here, so I can definitely get this root system, go real deep, pop her up. Look at all this nasty stuff coming off of here. So just like the thistle, the quack grass spreads through rhizomes. So if I come to an area that has little spots of quack grass coming up, doesn't look too bad, and I dig down, you can see all these root fibers that go underground, branch off in all kinds of different directions. And look at that, there's a quack grass sprouting up. You got the quack grass on the end, and then look at this. There's a node on the root system with more roots and another sprout of quack grass. So even when you come through here, you get these guys, you're breaking off pieces. Those broken off pieces are just more plants. So even if one seed falls and starts to grow, you break that root off, you are just planting more plants in here. Picture this, you come through here and you think you're just going to go through and till the soil to get rid of all this quack grass. All you're doing is cutting up those root pieces into more plants. You're making the problem 1,000 times worse. Same with the thistles. So in order to defeat the quack grass, you're probably going to have to cover the ground, solarize it, or a tarp for at least 2 years, I'd say. These boards have been down here for over a year and a half now, and look at that. The quack grass is still trying to thrive under here. I have not defeated quack grass, but by constantly putting more and more wood chips on top of here and building up soil above the rhizomes. So when that rhizome spreads through those wood chips and not in soil, it's a little easier for me to get more of it out than I would have if it was growing in hard, compact soil. So that takes away some of the energy of the deeper roots that are going to have to work a little bit harder to come up from the actual soil below here. So growing through the wood chips and mulch makes this plant a little weaker. The positive thing about the quackgrass is I found it really doesn't harm the plants growing around it, even though it does form a thick rhizome barrier. It's not really shading out too many plants, and once other plants grow around it, they kind of shade out the quackgrass, which controls it so it doesn't get too tall. But if I was to do it again, the outside of my garden, I would have probably dug like a 1 to 2 foot deep trench all the way around, just so the quackgrass can't spread rhizomes into my garden. At this point, it's too late. We're just gonna have to deal with it. Just keep putting more and more wood chips down, and hopefully in the future, years in the future, we're not gonna have to deal with the quackgrass. So hopefully I was able to teach you something today, a better way to understand some of these pesky weeds that I know a lot of you got growing. And maybe you'll give this a shot. If you don't have this, maybe use some CMU blocks, just something large, round, heavy that you can put on top of those weeds, smother them out. Put away the weed puller and smother some weeds. Thanks for watching.